So today I'm going to be doing my mother's old school Polynesian Christmas ham. And you can use a canned ham. I think Hormel Black label is best. If you want to use a canned ham, that's fine. I'm going to use the spiral sliced ham. Okay, it's almost a 10-pound ham. And it has a foil packet with glaze. That's going to go in the garbage because here's what's going to go on the ham. Dark brown sugar, whole cloves, cherries, regular mustard, and pineapple slices. And here I have a simple little pan set up here. I have a smaller pan here set down in a larger pan, and that's to make it easier for me to get this in and out of the oven. So I have drained the juice from the can of pineapples over there. So I have this pineapple juice, and I'm just going to pour it all over the ham. And then I'm going to take a baster and I'm going to make sure that it kind of gets all over the ham. I have a cup of mustard and a cup of dark brown sugar, and I'm going to stir this until it's well blended. So now that's all blended, I'm going to add the second cup of brown sugar. So that's 1 cup of mustard, 2 cups of dark brown sugar. Now we're going to take this glaze and we're going to totally soak the ham down with it. I'll take a basting brush and make sure it gets covered all very well. So there, now we have that started. So I took the cloves and I stuck them in the ham about 2 inches apart and then about 1 inch apart lengthwise. Okay, and these can kind of be a problem for children. So before you serve this ham, you want to make sure that whatever portion you give to children doesn't have the clove in it. So now it's time for the pineapples. So I have arranged the pineapples on the ham, and now it's time for the cherries. So I have a whole jar of cherries and 2 cans of pineapple rings. And as you can see, I am covering as much of the surface of the ham as I possibly can. Not only does this flavor the ham, but it also helps to keep it moist. Now I'm going to cover the ham with foil, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. Knock knock, little piggy, we love you. So there's directions with the ham. It looks like 275 Fahrenheit, 12 to 15 minutes per pound. I have got a 10-pound ham, which is a half of a ham, and it looks like the heating time is about 2 hours for that, and about 3 hours for a whole ham. And then of course there's slicing instructions here. Now if you decide to use a canned ham, it looks prettier if you'll score the top of that ham. If you don't, it's no big deal. You can still just put the cloves and the pineapple and cherry on it, but I just think it looks prettier when it's scored. So anyway, marinating overnight, and in the morning I will put it in the oven. So now it's time to make some dressing. I'm going to do some pineapple dressing for the ham, and I'm going to do an old-fashioned white bread dressing with the onion and the celery and the chicken broth and all of that. So I'm going to put these in an oven-safe pan. This is 2 loaves of very cheap white bread. Alright, I'm going to put it in the oven on 250, and I'm going to come back about every 10 minutes. I don't want to toast this bread. I want to make this bread have the texture of being stale, because that makes the best dressing, is a good stale bread. It's been 10 minutes, and so I have flipped the bread the other direction, just kind of like dominoes. Now it's okay at the end of the process if some of the bread is still kind of soft. That's alright. Alright, and as you can see, it's not really toasted or anything. It's just kind of hard, a little bit crusty. Okay, and you can even turn it upside down, flip it in different directions, just so it's kind of the opposite of what it was before. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't all have to be perfectly dried out, but you just want to kind of, move it around. You get the idea. It doesn't have to be perfect. And like I said, at the end of it all, you're still going to have some soft places on the bread, and that's okay. Got the bread in the oven for probably another 5 to 10 minutes. I'll check it in 5, and I'm going to go ahead and just turn the oven off. Okay, I took the bread out of the oven and I rearranged it one more time, tried to put the softer pieces on top, and I'm going to put it back in the oven for about another 5 minutes. So now I've just torn the bread up just roughly with my hands. It's not a precise thing. It's not a perfect science. I did this loaf of bread, this loaf of bread. Okay, this recipe calls for 2 cans of crushed pineapple in its own juice. I don't have the crush, I have the tidbits. So I'll just take like a potato masher or something and crush the pineapple myself. It also has to be drained. You have to drain the liquid off. So here I have the pineapple in a strainer. Okay, gonna let all the juice drain off, and then I'm going to take a potato masher and mash the tidbits. The potato masher did a pretty decent job, and so did this meat crusher. It's actually more for like ground beef, but it actually did a good job too. I just wanted to try both of them. And as you can see, there's some juice in there, so I'm going to need to strain this again. So I've transferred this to a large pan just for the purpose of mixing. I won't actually be baking it in this pan. If you are wondering, 20 pieces of standard size, standard sliced white bread makes like 10 loosely packed cups of shredded, torn bread. Now in this pan I have 2 sticks of salted butter. Please do not use margarine. It will not come out well if you do. You can use unsalted butter or salted. This is salted. Okay, and I've got 3/4 cup of regular white granulated sugar. And I'm not going to burn this butter. I'm going to melt it on a really low heat, like a medium to low. And then when it's melted, I'm going to stir the sugar in. Still on low heat, melting very slowly so that we don't burn the butter. Okay, the butter has melted. So now it's time to add the sugar. And we're just going to stir this together. So to recap, I melted the butter over very low heat, okay, which took some patience because we can't burn the butter. I added 3/4 cup of regular white granulated sugar. I added the pineapple tidbits, and now I'm going to add 1 cup of heavy whipping cream and give that a stir. So the idea is to get this mixture cooled down enough so that I can add the eggs. Now I set the eggs out before I started this, so they've been out for about half an hour. And that is so that the temperature of the eggs and the temperature of this mixture are about the same, because we can't pour these eggs if they're cold or colder than this mixture. We can't mix them together because that could cook the eggs. So you don't want to ever put beaten eggs into a hot mixture like this. We melt the butter on low heat. We add the sugar after we take this off the heat. Okay, and we stir that together. Then we add the pineapple, which cools the mixture even more. Then we add the refrigerated heavy whipping cream, 1 cup. And then we add the eggs that have already been sitting out for about half an hour. So as you can see, the eggs did not cook, and that's exactly what you want. It's called tempering, making everything the same temperature as your eggs. So now I have poured the mixture into the bread, the torn bread, and now I'm going to put some gloves on, and I'm going to mush this all up and make sure it's the right consistency to see if I need to add any more bread, to see if I need to add any more liquid. That's why I dried out 2 loaves of bread in case I needed to add some. So here we go. So yeah, I thought the mixture was just a bit too wet, so I added 2 loosely packed cups of the torn bread. So that's 12 cups altogether. And I'm going to give this a mix, and I think it's going to be perfect. I have plenty of bread left here. That's for another recipe. Now I'm going to spray this pan that I've rinsed out very well because it's new. And I'm going to spray it with cooking spray, and then I'm going to add the magic mixture. So there it is. I'm going to cover it with foil, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight because I'm not leaving until about 1 p.m. tomorrow, 1:30. My son lives about 100 miles away. And so I'm going to get up in the morning and put all this stuff in the oven, okay, so that it'll be fresh and hot when we get to his house. So now it's time to make the savory dressing. Okay, I make a ham dressing, but I also make a savory dressing in case people don't want the pineapple ham dressing. Some people don't like pineapple. Some people don't really have a sweet tooth. They want something more savory, and that's what this is for. And so, ooh, I have something burning under the eye, but okay, whatever. And so I am going to be bringing this to a boil. This is 1 cup of water. And you can use chicken broth if you want to, but I like something that has a stronger flavor. So I use chicken soup base. And this is Firehouse Flavors chicken soup base. Alright, it has a stronger flavor than chicken broth, and that's why I like to use it. You can also use Knorr if you want, if you can't get the Firehouse Flavors. I get this online, by the way. And so I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons to my cup of water. This is kind of like a powder, but it kind of has a moisture to it also, as you can see. So that's what chicken soup base, powdered chicken soup base, looks like. So it's a little bit different, like I said, than chicken broth. I think it has more chicken flavor than just plain chicken broth. So now we're going to melt a stick of salted butter. So now I've chopped some celery, and what I like to do is just take the whole stalk and just slice down the stalk until I have about a cup of celery. Okay, and then I'm going to dice it a little bit more fine, and then I'm going to move on to dicing an onion. So now I've peeled an onion, and I put my knife in at an angle and cut out this piece right here because, I don't know, that's kind of the harder part of the onion. And you want to try to use yellow onions, or even better, sweet onions, like Vidalia. Okay, now it's showtime. You remember I melted a stick of butter. Okay, on very low heat. I took all the butter that I could get out of this pan, and I drained it, and I put it in this bowl. And then I've added 3 tablespoons of oil. Okay, and now it's time to saute the onions and the celery until they are very tender. Okay, so the onions and celery now, the onions are almost translucent. I have this on medium-high heat. I'm going to cover, and I'm just going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to come back in about 10 minutes. So now my onions and celery are very tender. So now it's time to add the butter back to the pan. Now the reason I did this was to keep from burning the butter, because we want that rich buttery flavor. And then remember, this is salted butter, so I didn't salt the celery and onions while I was cooking them. And also there's a lot of salt in the chicken soup base that we're going to add. And now we're going to take this mixture and we're going to add it to our bread. So I have the bread here, and I'm just going to dump it in this very large pan, okay, for mixing. And you don't have to do it that way. You can use a very large mixing bowl, okay. And then I'm going to take this mixture and I'm going to pour it in here. I'm going to pour about half of it. I'm going to give it a mix, okay, because I don't want to get it too moist. So I'm just going to add a little at a time, about half. And then see where we are after I stir it. I'm going to put some gloves on, stir it up with my hands, and see where we are with the moisture level. So I went ahead and added all of the celery and onion mixture and got it combined really well. I think it's a little on the dry side, okay? And so I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup heavy whipping cream. You could also add a little bit more chicken broth or something like that, but I want to add a little heavy whipping cream. And I'll tell you why. I tasted it, and it's just a touch salty, okay? And I don't want it to get too salty, so I don't want to use chicken broth. I want to adjust that and mellow it out a little bit with the heavy whipping cream. Now I'm going to stir this together, mix it very well, and see what else I might want to do. So now I've transferred this to my little 9x13. I sprayed it with cooking spray, and I spread it out very evenly, so it's about 1/2 inch thick, okay? Because I like my dressing a little bit more on the dry side rather than it being really, really moist. And so if it's thinner, of course, it's going to have a more dry consistency, which is what I like. Okay, so this is 8 cups of loosely packed bread, okay, that's been dried out or made stale. About 1 cup of celery, about 1 cup of onion, 1 cup of water, 1.5 teaspoons of chicken soup base, the powdered kind, and 1 stick of butter, 3 tablespoons of oil, which I use to saute the onions and celery, and about 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. So now it's time to prepare the green beans and potatoes. I'm going to put these in a strainer and rinse them, and then I'm going to put them in this pan over here. Okay, so I drained the potatoes and rinsed them off, and I've done the same thing with the green beans. And now we're going to add some water. Okay, probably a couple of cans. We'll see. I'm going to add 1 and see what happens. Maybe 2. Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be enough. I'm going to stir it up and see if I need to add more. And then I'm going to chop 1/2 stick of butter and add to this, cover it with foil, put it in the fridge. Okay, so I have my green beans and potatoes all mixed up, got 1/2 stick of butter all chopped up in there, and now I'm just going to add just a dash of pepper. Now the butter is salted, and these vegetables were canned in salt. So I don't feel the need to add any more salt for the cooking process. I think it would be better just to let folks salt this themselves, okay, so that it doesn't get over salty. Gonna cover it with foil, put it in the fridge overnight, put it in the oven in the morning. So here we're all organized. We have our ham here that's already dressed. We have our pineapple dressing. We have our savory dressing. Green beans and potatoes here, all ready for the oven in the morning. Okay, I've been baking the ham covered now for about an hour on 300, all right, and I'm just basting it to keep it moist, okay. And by the way, if you're wondering what that is in the pineapples and cherries, those are toothpicks, which helps to keep everything in place, as you know. And so now I want to add something to the pan here. I'm going to add some pineapple chunks or tidbits, doesn't matter, just drain them off and pour them in. Okay, and sorry, I'm moving the phone all kind of weird directions. This is so hard to do, by the way, while you're holding a phone. And then I'm going to do the same with cherries. Got some extra cherries here. Because I don't know about you, but I like to scoop some of these out of the syrup or the broth or whatever you call this, basting liquid, and enjoy that with my ham also. So I'm going to cover it again, pop it back in the oven for about an hour, maybe 2. I'm going to turn the heat down to 275. So there's my old-fashioned savory dressing with the celery, onions, chicken broth, butter, and bread. Okay, it turned out really nicely. I baked it for about half an hour uncovered. Got to keep an eye on it though, because like I said, it's layered in here really thin, and because of that, it can cook really fast. It could possibly burn. So be sure to take a look at it like 15 minutes and then every 2 or 3 minutes after that, or every 5 minutes. And this is my pineapple dressing. It's pretty much done around the edges. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some foil around the edges to protect it. I'm going to put it back in for about maybe 20 minutes to get the top a little more brown. But I don't want to burn the edges, so I'll cover the edges with foil. And now I'm boiling my green beans and potatoes, and I'm going to return them to the foil pan before we leave. So when we have the edges of something done and the middle isn't, I'll take the foil that I covered it with and I'll fold it in half. And I cut here and here, and now I'm going to cut this way, okay, and then that's going to create a space, sorry, for me to brown the top that hasn't been browned yet, the part in the middle. So I'm going to cut this and put that on the top. So there, that's what I'm talking about. Going to put it back in the oven for about 15 minutes. So after I put this back on, I'm going to cut a little notch in each little corner, okay, at an angle. All right, here, all 4 corners. Then I'm going to press the foil down over the part that's already brown, which is the edges. Then I'm going to put this in the oven for about 10 minutes, and then I'll give it a check. So I'm going to be traveling with this food, and so the temperature danger zone for foods is between 70 degrees and 135 degrees. So I'm going to try to keep the food as hot as possible, and maybe even put it in the oven when I get there to bring it back up to 135. But I'm going to microwave these hot packs one at a time, place them in the cooler, layer them up with my foods to try to keep them really hot. And these are very effective, by the way. You want to make sure that they are completely thawed out if they've been frozen, because these are hot or cold packs. And you microwave them for about 1.5 minutes and see if there's expansion. If there's not expansion, another, 30 seconds in those intervals until the bag expands, okay? And then you just layer them between your hot foods in a cooler. So after about 20 minutes on 275, as you can see, now it's evenly brown across the top and the edges and everything. The edges aren't dark brown in the middle, not done. So, got the green beans going to put them in a foil pan and getting ready to check the ham. So it's been about an hour on 300 and about an hour and a half on 275. My ham is cooked beautifully. So now at this stage, I'm going to just turn the oven on warm and put all the food back in there just to keep it warm until time to go. So I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day. Bye-bye.